All right, I'm here with Maria Sharapova. Maria, thank you for being with me.
Of course.
I just actually, you gave me graciously a copy of your book, Unstoppable, and I couldn't put it down. I loved it.
Thank you.
Obviously, I think many people know you in regards to your accomplishments, 5 Grand Slams, including every major. You had the honor, I learned in the course of the book, of being the first female, is that right, to be asked to be flag bearer for your country.
Yes, right.
So absolutely incredible accomplishments. The best of the best, ranked #1 several times. But what actually struck me most and what I loved about the book was you're talking about the challenges and the tenacity that you've demonstrated through the challenges.
Right.
And I think that's something that all of us can relate to.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could take me back a little bit. You start in the book with the story of your father and your journey kind of into tennis, starting at 4 years of age. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons I wanted to write the book was so much of my life post-winning Wimbledon at 17 years old was recorded, from the matches to interviews to everything. But a lot of how we got there was not the story of coming to America as a 6.5-year-old girl with just my father, leaving my mom behind for 2 years because of not allowing her to get a visa for the first 2 years. Martina Navratilova spotting my talent at a kids clinic amongst hundreds of other kids when I was just 5 years old, which is crazy because I see 5-year-olds now and I was like, I don't know if they're going to be great. I don't know if they're going to be good or make it or play college. So for her to be able to pull my father aside and say, your daughter has talent and I think you should do something about it. And then my dad sort of stepping up and saying, I'm going to take action. Like, there's not enough to develop this tennis in Russia. Tennis was by far maybe a least popular sport back then, especially in the north. You had hockey, you had all the winter sports, Olympic sports, you had gymnastics, but tennis was just not quite as where it is today.
Sure.
And so we bought a ticket. They bought a ticket to Florida. We landed in Miami Airport, and following that, just years of trying to figure out where to train, how to train, with what coach.
Yeah, you mentioned in the book, which I found fascinating, both obviously Navratilova spotting your talent, but your father also, really remarkable level of commitment to say, I think he said you showed up, he talked the visa officer into giving you a 3-year visa, which is miraculous.
It's crazy.
And then what I loved was you made the distinction that actually, one, that he trusted his gut, which I thought was a really powerful lesson.
Yeah.
It's very, obviously it's a huge leap of faith.
We think a lot about our decisions, right? We before we make them. And he was like, no, this is what I feel from the beginning and I'm going to go with it. And he believed in signs. So he would see all these different signs and he's like, oh, that is meant to be what I think it's meant to be. And he would go for it. And if you think about it, like taking your daughter to a whole new environment, a new culture, in a new place, if anyone was to really take a deep look at themselves in the mirror, you'd think, okay, you're crazy and you're stupid. Because how many make it? Like 1 in a million?
Right. And
he was like, yeah, it is stupid, but I'm going to go for it. And I think that's, like, sitting down with him during the process of writing was really special, to have. I'm an only child, so we formed a very close bond and friendship with my father and my mom as well. And so much as, and as I was writing this, I also noticed from other people how so much of a relationship between an athlete and a parent becomes very distant as the athlete grows older because of the dedication and the commitment and the time that the parent and the athlete spend together. And it was really the opposite for me. Like, my dad was by no means an easy figure. Like, he was very harsh and tough and, he knew what he wanted and he was strict with me, and from everything from pre-match to stretching to the way that I trained to going to bed early in the evening. So all those things. But I didn't resent him for it because I loved what I was doing and I knew that he was only contributing to what I wanted to achieve.
And he sacrificed it profoundly.
So much,
You talk about him throwing his back out and being in pain for a full day without it being discovered. And a variety of things. I obviously had because of my relationship with my father, had a very deep resonance with the degree to which he had your back.
Right.
I also like the distinction that you drew in the book of saying that one of his key traits was actually not, even though he said yes on his
Yeah.
gut, it was what the distinction you drew was also his ability to say no when it mattered.
Exactly. And I think and that's just in every business and in every sport, like we have a lot of opportunities to say yes to things, and a lot of those are traps. And it's so easy to say yes to them because it feels like immediate feedback, it feels like it's immediate success. But it's not, I don't always believe that it's long-term growth. It's not always the right decision for long-term. And I'm someone that from a very young age, and I don't know exactly where that came from, but I've always had long-term vision. So I'm not doing something today for tomorrow. I'm doing it for the next day. And if what I do today results in a great day tomorrow, like that's a bonus.
Yeah, I noticed there was a variety of, because I'm always looking to distill down in sort of speaking with these peak minds, like what are the consistent, behaviors that one could replicate in their own lives. And to me, what kept coming back was, and you mentioned this, your incredible tenacity, like both the vision, long-term vision, and ability to see through the setbacks. And I want to touch on, obviously Wimbledon being a marquee moment, 17 years old, but the match which you go into some detail around with Lindsay Davenport, where it looked like you were basically...
Oh, I was out.
You were out.
Yeah, I was semifinals of Wimbledon. I'm down a set, in front of like this amazing crowd. The Royal Box has like Billie Jean King and all the greats in there. And I'm like this happy camper losing, I don't know, it was bad, a set and a break, and it starts raining. And I was like, oh, that means I have to wait for my flight out. And like, I wanted to get it over with. I had no chance. It was like she did everything that I did and better.
Yeah.
And I remember going back into the locker room. I was reading some gossip magazine, like eating a chocolate bar, getting my legs rubbed down. And I go, it was like 5 to 10 minutes before the match resumed. And I have this, first it was my father and I and my coach, and then it was just like the moments before were just my father and I. And he like looked dead straight into my eyes and he was like, "You're going to win this." And I was like, "Have you been watching what's been out there? Like, how am I going
Not
to
based
win?"
on evidence, yeah.
So I went from like laughing to being scared shitless because I was like, whoa, how does he? And all of a sudden I thought, you know what? Maybe he's right.
Yeah.
And so I went, it's amazing what words can do, like that quick moment of, you have a chance.
Yes.
And look, it could have gone complete opposite way, and I could have gone to the court and lost the next few games and been out of the tournament. But it was like little by little, you win a few points, you put them together, and the next thing you know, she's thinking about being in the finals of Wimbledon, and she's had 2 hours to think about it, and it's not an easy position to be in.
Yeah, you talk about that distinction in terms of like having something to win versus having something to lose.
Yeah.
And what I love was you went on to beat Lindsay, went on to win Wimbledon at 17, one of the youngest players ever to take that crown on a marquee stage. I loved how you mentioned the fact that your father's laughter you'd never sort of seen before or after in that way, but the way that affected your mindset. And also mentioned the degree to which like other conditions, like the house you were in, like the fact that you were with a 2-year-old who like kept you grounded, the degree of having those kind of grounding forces was pivotal. And so I thought a little bit about team, because what also occurred to me is you sort of break up through the course of your journey. You work with different coaches. Obviously, your father being a marquee figure.
And he still overlooks the process. But along the way, I've worked with many different coaches. And that's been an interesting process because as an athlete, when I was young, it was very much like I felt like it was just myself and it was just me who was winning. And I've gained a whole new appreciation of what team is and what everyone does and how everyone influences and impacts what you do on the court. And even though it's just you out there, there's so many people that pour everything of their job and even more and go above and beyond to make you great and be a champion. But it wasn't something that resonated with me from a young age. I just thought it was just me and I go there and I win or lose. And a lot of it is like I take responsibility for losing and I take responsibility for winning. I'm the one that holds the trophy. But I think what you need to also understand, and I learned that, is that what I need as a 17-year-old wasn't the type of coaching that I needed as, a 20-year-old or someone that's 25, and you evolve as a player. You need different things, and maybe in the beginning it was a little bit more technical, and the process of understanding that it sometimes takes too long. And
Yeah.
I've made that mistake before, like realizing that like I'm moving into a different chapter. I need something else. I've become comfortable. I've become complacent. The drills that I'm doing, the repetitions I'm doing, it becomes a little too similar. They're not keeping me on my feet. They're not keeping me surprised. And yeah, it's very delicate because these are also relationships. Like I spend more time with these people than I spend with my family. And so it's like, how do you know when is the time to?
That was my great learning, actually, and there are a variety of insights I garnered from the book. But really thinking about, I mean, you mentioned, I think the first time you mentioned was at 18. You realized both your great strength, like you understood your own game.
Yeah.
You understood your great strength, but also you
Yeah.
understood your own weakness,
Yeah.
such that you could overcome it.
Right.
And then in working through, for example, one of your great strengths was your serve. And then obviously when you faced injury,
Yeah.
you had to reinvent your game again.
Exactly.
And so to me, both in that view of tenacity, but also in the context of reinvention, it seems to me actually that foresight is one of your great gifts. And
Yeah.
it was one of the great learnings that I had from the
Right.
book is like, okay, at this chapter in my life, right, who do I need to bring onto my team?
Right.
And so one of the questions I had was, because there were key members of your team, both your father, I mean, like Connor, like there was various figures that were pivotal, that are
very
marquee
different
relationships.
characters.
Right.
Yeah.
What was the process for you in terms of saying, okay, I both want to honor this relationship and everything that it brings, and I want to bring another aspect in to enhance my game?
Right. Well, it depends on the time, and it depends on the frame of mind that you have. So, for instance, when I was going through my shoulder surgery, and after having, I had a really powerful and strong serve. And I went through this phase of pain for a long period of time when my injury was misdiagnosed, where I couldn't understand, my arm and my body weren't connected. And going through that process, having surgery, coming back, so many things changed with my motion. I had to shorten my motion. I had to adjust. And it went from being a strength to something that was very mediocre. And I thought about it. I studied it. I talked about it with my coach and my father and my team. I wanted to make it better. And then I took a step back, and I realized that instead of focusing so much on what wasn't working, I started relying and improving the other aspects of my game and letting something else that was once a strength and that wasn't a strength at that moment kind of settle down into its own and not put that much focus. And I'm not sure where it came from. Maybe it was experience and finally maturity. I was able to say, you know what, we focused on this so much. When you have a problem and you're trying to figure it out and you bring other people and experts and opinions, and then it just becomes a hot mess.
Right.
And then,
All the noise.
And sometimes taking a step back is really important. But my father, he has very much a Russian mentality. You need to make decisions that are based on your best interest. And that might hurt a relationship at this moment. But we give so much to what we do. Our work is so important to us. And we don't want to find ourselves being in a situation where we lose a match, we lose a deal, and we're forced to think, we tried to save that relationship because we want it to be nice and comfortable and complacent. And so we have this feeling of regret.
Yeah.
And that's awful.
Yeah, I think that was one of the other things that I garnered from your narrative was looking at always having the long game in mind.
Yeah.
You talk about even in the context of relationships, right? In the locker room relationships, where a lot of people, feel the need to connect. Whereas and you've seen it always as well, I think there's just a commitment to authenticity is what I got from it. I mean, even in the context of the medical prescription, which then got banned, the fact that you came out and wanted to be the first to own the story yourself. Yeah. I think there's something to that to me. It really shows a value in integrity and authenticity, but and not covering things up. That was one of the pieces, at least, that I garnered from it, right?
Yeah.
And So, but how do you maintain that discipline, right? Because it seems to me that it
Of
requires,
authenticity?
yeah, the discipline of authenticity, and also the discipline of kind of keeping the end in mind, right? Like when, I mean, there was a moment you
Yeah.
talk about in the locker room where, like, right before a match, I think it was a Wimbledon match,
Yeah.
I think it was Serena came
Serena
up to
came
you
up
and
to
was like
me.
telling you about her engagement,
Yeah.
and like it was, where you hadn't had a particular previous relationship
No,
beyond the court.
exactly. And it's
Right.
like, am I being thrown off here?
Yeah,
Is this part of
exactly.
the plan?
Right.
Or is this genuine? You don't know. And that's like what I question in the book. 'Cause
Yeah.
I still sometimes do, you
Right.
know? But I think, I mean, and especially when you sit down to write a book and you really go back to those particular moments where, I mean, so much of it is said about relationships and locker rooms and friendships and this being an individual sport, and how do you form those friendships and then get out on the court and compete. And for me, there's like, it's black or white.
Yeah.
Like, there's no middle ground. It's how I felt from the very beginning. Now, respect plays a big part in this, because I don't need to be friends with someone in order to respect them. I think respect is the highest form of friendship in a competitive environment, to me. And I've had that mentality from a very young age, and I've carried it with me. It's kind of, it's always there. I walk into the tournament venue and got my headphones on.
Mm-hmm.
I've got tunnel vision. I'm in the locker room for a few minutes. I get my shoes out, I put them in, I take a shower, I go practice, I come back in there, I get ready for my match. I mean, I don't spend much time there. I have nothing to do there. Like, that is my office, and I treat it as part of my preparation, and not just like physical preparation, but mental preparation. Because when I get out on the court, I can't be like sitting around having like hot chocolate and eating marshmallows and s'mores,
Right,
and then like
right.
going out and pumping my fist. I mean, there are people that can, and I just can't. So I talk about it very openly, because I can't find that switch.
Yeah, the vanilla ice cream with sprinkles is reserved for this special crew.
Exactly.
I love that moment too, because my father's like core passion is ice cream. Like, it was our
Ice
way of
cream
related.
truck, New York City. I was like, where's the nearest ice cream truck?
I love that. The other piece that really struck me was you draw a distinction between good and great. You say, it's easy to be good when everything's in your favor, but really greatness, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but as I interpreted it, was rising up in and through the really tough times.
Yeah, definitely, because there's only been a handful of times during my career where I've finished the match, I've come off the court, and I've been like, wow, like, everything I did just worked. Everything I had planned in my mind, the shots that I wanted to make, the patterns I wanted to play with, shot selection, I was in the zone, everything worked. There's only a few times that that's happened.
Yeah.
Because tennis is, and I imagine it with every other sport, it's emotional, it's physical, it's mental. There are momentum changes. It can be an hour, it can be 3 hours. And so all that goes into play. It's impossible to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
There are players that make it look perfect, that make it look flawless. I mean, you look at Roger Federer and the way he plays, but he makes it look flawless. But to get to that moment of flawless is like the work ethic and the time and the repetition and everything that goes into it, is not the things that are not flawless that end up being flawless. So I really believe in this. When I come off the court and I think that I got through a match by not playing my best tennis, is when I get the most confidence to keep going in the tournament and to keep improving. And that's something that Jimmy Connors actually told me as well. He says it's very powerful to be able to win a match when nothing is working.
Yeah.
When nothing is working and it's your bad day, and you come through. I mean, he's like, if that doesn't give you satisfaction, I mean, then what will? Because everyone can feel great when they're playing great.
Yeah.
When everything's flowing, when they're executing. But it's when you're not, and you're able to find a way to win. It's like, what more do you want? And when he said it, he made it seem so simple, but it's absolutely correct.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at also, the arch, what was remarkable to me is to think you started at 4, 26 years you've been focused on this journey. And what I personally resonated with, because I have a deep reverence, is probably the figure I love the most, is you started with the Mandela quote, which was talking about, don't judge me by my successes, but judge me by the number of times that I've gotten knocked down and get back up.
That's right.
And so, to me, there were times like when you talked about your surgery, obviously when the context of the medical regulations changed and you got suspended for 15 months, which is a lifetime for an athlete. But I also I want to acknowledge you because what I loved in the book was you always saw at least in the way that you reflected upon it, the positive in it. You're like, actually, my body hadn't rested. I've been playing tennis for 20 plus years, and so like, I'm going to take this time. I'm going to go intern at the NBA. I'm going to go, I'm going to do a class at Harvard. I'm going to build my business. So like, how do you turn those obstacles into opportunities? It seems like that's something that you're always mindful of.
I am, because I do believe that we have a choice of how we continue moving forward, and I don't think everyone's lives is perfect, and I think we all face challenges, and I faced one of my toughest challenges that I could have faced in the last couple of years as an athlete, and it's like you said, like it really helped me getting up front of it and telling the truth and telling what happened. It allowed me to go through the process with a sense of, you know what, yes, I'm uncertain about when I'll be back. It might be 2 years, it might be 1 year, I don't know, but when I will be back, I will be ready. And in the meantime, I want to use this chance. And it was tough because it was like, I let go of my team for a certain period of time, who's like family to me. I didn't train as I do train, like tennis-wise, for a long period of time, which was a nice little break, but I missed it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do other things, and I wanted to feel like I put myself in an uncomfortable environment, like being around people I don't know, going to a school that I don't know, staying in a campus. It's just all those little things that that made me, that uncomfort, like made me want to grow even more.
Yeah.
And then just being like accepted in a situation like that where, there's a lot of negativity, and just feeling accepted by people, like someone like an Adam Silver or a corporation like Nike that said, you know what, come here, you'll shadow us, you'll go into these meetings, and I was just in awe of it.
Yeah. It's beautiful, actually, and also obviously you had time to write a book which is going to inspire Unstoppable, which is going to inspire a great number of people. What would you say in reflecting? Like, you've had a few months now, you're obviously back in the game, just beat the world's number 2 at the U.S. Open. Congratulations. And I'm incredibly excited to see what the future holds. But as you've achieved, and I know you've been asked this question before, but I guess as you've achieved the great milestones, if you will, that oftentimes define the sort of pinnacle, the penultimate success, what does success look like for you now, having had time to sort of pause and reflect, and what do you see as the kind of key qualities that you feel are translatable from your success that other people can use in adopting for their own?
Yeah. Success to me has become more of an internal feeling than ever before. And it's not something that can be taken a picture of, or most of the time can be seen from others. It's such an internal understanding of what a person or a situation or something that you do, its meaning and how it affected you and what you did to get there. And it's a lot of emotions that come together and create this happiness. And I don't know, I definitely feel that before it was, I wouldn't say materialistic things, but like things when you're holding a trophy in that moment. And I don't want to take anything away from that, because that is so special, and that is what I work for, is that last moment of holding a trophy. But it's almost like that morning after, when you're like just waking up after a championship, and you get your little replica, and it's not the big thing, but it's this little thing that's sitting next to you, and then you have, you get these messages from all your friends, and that have seen you go through everything, the challenges, the great moments, the tough moments, your family, and just seeing how it impacts them. And a lot of that happiness moment comes like from within. So that's definitely changed. Yeah. I think one thing like we make mistakes of is, like, I used to set certain goals for myself, and I changed that mentality a little bit, because I feel like if you accomplish that, like say it is winning a particular event, like what's then? What happens after? Like, is that you wanted to grow up to that, but then do you limit yourself to only that goal? I think we're like the uncertainty of not having a particular finish line is exciting to me. Whereas maybe when I was younger, it was scarier. And I've put myself in that privileged position because I have achieved what I have and I've won the title. So maybe I allow myself to feel that way. Maybe when I was younger and I still hadn't won enough tournaments or matches, I would feel like, yeah, I need to get that tournament. I want to get that tournament. But now, like having the feeling of uncertainty actually inspires me a lot.
Well, we're excited to see what the future holds,
Thank you.
especially amidst the
Thank you so
uncertainty.
much.
And so
Yeah.
grateful for you taking the time.
Of course, absolutely.
Thanks, Maria.
Of course.